All right, hello students. So today I'm going to do this short video to show you some of the fancier things that you can do with CSS when you do your Zen Garden. These are things we didn't really have time to cover in class. So first I'm going to show you that I'm going to start with just kind of a basic Zen Garden. So here we go, we have the title at the top. Now I did go ahead and do the menu with the pseudo links that allows me to style the different stages of the button. Remember, the button, the first stage is what it looks like when the page loads. The second stage is what it looks like, when the browser, there we go, after it's been clicked. So in this case, both how it looks when it loads and how it looks like when it's clicked are the same. The third is what does it look like when the mouse rolls over it, and in this case, we have a pink background. And the fourth is the active stage, what happens when you actually click down upon it and it actually disappears. I'll show you where that is in the CSS in a minute. I have the text of the Zen Garden. I have some subheads. I have a couple of images. I have a rock up here. I have a little woo down here. And notice that they're in different locations and they're floating. One is floating left, one is floating right. So I have two separate, they're styled with two separate classes. And then I have the text. I don't have any background image, and I have this really hideous Times New Roman font, which is going to be one of the first things that we change. So let me show you what the HTML looks like. This is the basic HTML that we have been producing. So up at the top, there's the doc type HTML, then open head. And remember, there are two main parts to the HTML page, the head and the body. The body is where all the content goes, so all the text, all the images are linked here, any videos would be linked here. And the head is where we put stuff that the browser uses but the user doesn't really interact with. So here we have our friend Metacharset, UTF-8, which is American English. We have a title, oh, this is from February 1st, look at that. And then we have a link to the CSS. That all goes in the head. In the body, we have our main tags. So we have the body. Inside the body, we have main. Main is basically a box that holds all the other boxes. Remember, it's the box model. So the word CSS Zen Garden Simplified is inside of the header tags. So that's this box. Then we have the nav tag, which is this one. And inside it, we have a menu structure. And there's a separate video on how to structure menus. This is it. So we have the ULLI structure, and each menu item has an A tag in front of it. And remember, the A is the link tag. Then below the navigation, we have the article, and we have a subhead. So that's the Road to Enlightenment. And so what is this about? This is both class subhead. That's right here. And then we have some P's. Oh, and we also have an image. We have stone.ping. There it is. And it's class float left. So I've actually styled this in the CSS with a class called float left. And that's important because I have more than one image on this page. So if I want this one to float left and the other one to float right, I have to put them in two different classes. Okay, then we go down. We basically have a bunch of P's and a couple subheads. All the way down, a subhead, a subhead, a subhead. Oh, here's another image. Okay, and this is class float right. So there it is. There's the woo. It's floating right. Okay, and then we scroll down all the way to the bottom, and we have the footer. There's the footer. Okay, so let me look at the CSS. Okay, here in the CSS, we have some very simple styles. We have the background color is dark gray. We have a main div that contains all the other content, and it's 80% of the browser window. And margin auto puts it in the center of the browser window. We have a header. This is the header. The background color is gray. The text color is pink. There's some padding. There's some extra padding at the top. Font size, we're using M's, and a font family, Times New Roman. We have the navigation. The color here is, the text color is white. So remember, color is text color, but these navigation elements are not being colored by the nav style. They're being colored further down by the pseudo classes, the A link, the A visited, the A hover, the A active. So the color is chartreuse, that's this color. A visited is also chartreuse. A hover, the text color remains chartreuse, but then the background color becomes deep pink. So when I roll over it, there we go, that's the A hover. And then A active, the opacity goes to 0, which means it disappears. So when I roll over here and click, it disappears. Okay, that's the nav. Here's the UL and LI styling. I have another video on how to style up the menus using UL and LI. So this area is the article. The background color is white. The text color is a dark gray. There's some padding, and the font size is 1M. Remember, 1M is the default font size for a device. Then we have class subhead, that's this here. So these are P class equals subhead. The color is red. The font size is 1.5M, so it's a little bit bigger than the body copy. And the font family is this Times New Roman. Now we have two classes here, class float left and class float right. So I'm just going to tell you something. Float left, this is actually assigned to this image. So it's floating left and the size is 20%, and that means 20% of the browser window, or sorry, 20% of the article, because this thing is contained within the article. Okay, float right, down here, I didn't put a sizing element on that. And then the footer, the background color is light gray, the text color is dark gray, we have some padding, we have that Times New Roman font, we have the links, and that's it for the CSS. So the first thing I'm going to do to this is I'm going to change the font. Now remember, when we started, we were using just some generic font families, because unless you link to a font set on the web, and I'm going to show you how to do that, you have to use a font family that's available on the user's computer. So when you see, for example, this, for the header, font family, Times New Cambria, that's weird. I'm sure that's supposed to be Times New Roman. Actually, that's wrong. I think that was a typo. Cambria, Hoffler Text, Liberation Serif, Times. So it basically goes down the list. If it doesn't see Cambria, it will go to Hoffler Text. So I'm thinking Times New Cambria. Yeah, I think it's just, yeah, it's just ignoring that and probably going to Times here. All right, but one of these fonts have to be installed on the user's computer. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to Google Fonts. Google Fonts is a database of fonts that you can use in your web page. And what we have to do is we have to find a font we like, then we link to that font like a style sheet, and then we can use it in the CSS. So let's go to Google Fonts. And by the way, the links for all of this they are on Canvas. Okay, they're on Canvas. Oh, one moment. I don't know why it does this. Okay, the links that we're looking at are on Canvas, under Modules, under Intro to HTML, under Resources. So we already saw Adobe Color. We're going to use Google Fonts, the column generator, the text shadow generator, and maybe the gradient tool, and maybe border radius if we get to it. Okay, so I'm going to go to Google Fonts. Okay, so here's how it works. They now have 1,052 fonts that you can choose from. And so you can scroll through until you find a font that you really like, Or if, like me, you know that all you really want is a sans serif font, you can go to Categories and just select sans serif. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's find a nice, oh, there's Oswald. That's pretty good. Let's see. Let's find something. Oh, Anton. Anton has one style. I want to find one that has more than one style. All right, Techo here. We'll try this one. Now this has 5 styles. I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to click on Techo. And I'm going to select one of these styles. Now notice we have multiple styles here. We have light, regular, medium, semi-bold, and bold. So maybe let's use, we'll choose 2 of these. We'll do medium and semi-bold. So I'm going to select this style, and I'm going to select this style. So I've selected 2 styles of this font, Techo. So let me show you what happens here. We're going to use this in our HTML, and we have to do 2 things here. The first thing that we need to do, we need to link it to our HTML. It's like linking to a style sheet. We have to link to the font. So this box here is what we copy and paste and put into our HTML in the head as a link to the style sheet. Now there's 2 links here. The first one says link rel equal preconnect. What this does is it says when the document loads, it says we're going to be using a Google font. So we want you to go ahead and connect to that font and get ready to use it. It just speeds up the time it takes for the font to appear on your page. The next part here is the direct link to the font, and it looks just like a style sheet. So it says link href equal https fonts.googleapi.com css2 family equal Techo, and then weight 500 semicolon 600. So 500, see it says medium 500, that's the medium, and 600, that's the semi-bold. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whole thing, I'm going to copy it so it's in my paste buffer. I'm going to take it back to the HTML, and I'm going to paste it in my head underneath my style sheet. I'm going to paste it right here. So now I have 2 lines in my HTML. I have the pre-connect, and then I have the link directly to the fonts. So they're not going to show up yet. This will only make it possible for me to use them. After I have linked to them, then I need to go to the CSS, and I actually need to plug them in where I'm going to use them. So let me show you how that works. So if I go back here, see where it says CSS rules to specify families. It says font family, Techo sans serif. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put this in the header and the nav and the subhead and the footer. Every place where I want to use the sans serif font. Now, there's one more thing I should do. Let me see what happens if I preview this. Let's see what we get. Let's see if we get the styles that we want. Okay, so this looks like we're probably getting the 500 one. So by default, because we've already linked, this is Techo or whatever it's called, but we're only getting 1 width. Remember, we downloaded the medium and I think the semi-bold. So let me go back and show you how to specify the semi-bold. If I want to use the semi-bold, I have to use a weight designation in the CSS. So generally speaking, if you do, let's put this in the header. If you do font weight, now here I am in Dreamweaver. It's giving me a long list of numbers, and then bold, bolder, inherit lettered, and normal. Usually the only things that work are bold and normal. The only time these numbers work is if you have linked to a font library and you're using different numbers, which is what we're doing here. So let me show you what I mean. So here we got Techo weight at 500, which I think is semi-bold, and 600, or 500 might be medium and 600 is semi-bold. And where did we see that initially? At the Google font. So our medium is 500 and semi-bold is 600. So I'm going to set the header, the nav, and the footer to semi-bold, which is 600. So to do that, I'm going to set the font weight to 600. So this number is going to change based on which font you choose. Okay, I'm going to say font weight 600. And I'm going to leave the subhead alone. I want the smaller font for the subhead, or the less heavy font, the less bold font. Okay, font weight 600. All right, let's see how that works. Okay, let's see what this looks like now. Okay, so it looks like we have the fatter font in the top. So just to be sure, I'm going to set the Road to Enlightenment. I'm going to specify font weight. Where is it? Subhead, font weight 500. Okay. What I should have done is gotten a much more, some fonts with a bigger difference between the weights. Okay, yeah, you can see it now. All right, so you can clearly see that there's a difference between how fat this is and how fat these are. These are fatter. So this is 600, this is 500. Okay, that's Google Fonts. And you can go to Google Fonts and select things. Let's say we get to this point and we're like, I don't really want the medium one, so I can remove that. And then when I copy this, I'll just get the 600. Or I can say, well, maybe I want another style in addition to Techo. So this is in my selected families. So if I go back to Google Fonts, let's say I also want Pattaya. There's only one style. Okay. Then it will add Pattaya to my style link. So it takes a little bit of time to figure out how to use this. But if you get confused, you can always go to Dr. Google and say, how do I use Google Fonts in CSS? And there's a couple ways. You can link, oh look, W3 Schools has a thing on it. You can either link directly to the Google font, or you can import it. I think they're going to show you how to link here. But at any rate, there are plenty of tutorials on the web that will show you how to link to Google Fonts, how to use them. Okay, for our next trick, what did I have in store for our next trick? Oh, we're going to use a background image. Okay, so let me show you my little folder here, if I can find it. I have a little background image in it, and it's different from the circle that we used before. It's thinking about it. Zen Complete. Okay, it's on the desktop. Here it is. So this is the folder I'm working out of, and I have a file in there called zenbg.jpg. What I want to do is I want to use this as a background image. I'm going to put it in the background of my body, and instead of having it repeat, I'm going to just make it one big image in the background of my body. So I'm going to show you how you can use a single image for the background of your entire page. Now, this image, quite frankly, I stole this a while ago from the internet. If you really want to do this well, you would probably get a larger image than what I have here, but we're going to use this. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to put literally the picture. Let me show you where I'm going to do it. So where the gray is, that's where I want the picture to go. Okay, so I'm going to go to the CSS. I'm going to put this background image in my body. Right now I just have that background color. The first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to say background image. And when you do background image, the value is URL, open and close paren, and then you put the path to your image. Hopefully the image is in the same folder as your CSS and HTML. But here I happen to know it is, and it's zenbg.bg.jpg. Okay, let's see what I have so far. Okay, so I have my little image, and notice it's tiling. It's repeating like a tile. And actually, it's not a terrible image for repeating. It's not what I want, though. I want it to just be one big image. So to get it to stop repeating, I'm going to go back to my CSS, to the body, and I'm going to say background, repeat. I'm going to set it to no repeat. Okay, and that's going to look a little funky because that's going to cause it to go in the upper left-hand corner, and then the rest of it is gray, which is also not what I want. If I wanted to cover the entire page, what I can say background, repeat. Now there's a couple of, if I wanted to cover the entire page, I can say background size. Okay, now there's a few options here. One is contain and one is cover. If you have an image that's really big, that's probably bigger than your page, you can use contain. But if that's not the case, if you just wanted to cover your entire design, or if it's smaller, you can just say cover. And what that's going to do is it's going to force this image, it's going to distort it, right? It will distort it. And in this case, it doesn't really matter because of the kind of image it is, but it will cause it to become the single background for your page, and sometimes you really want that. Okay, now there's one last little trick here. So this is nice. I scroll down, I have this nice page. Okay, so there's another little trick here, and I'm just going to show you it because it's sometimes hard to explain what it is. And this is called background attachment. Okay, and there's a few, but the one that we're interested in is called fixed. And let me show you what that does. So if I set the background attachment to fixed, and I go to my page and I start scrolling, notice that the content scrolls, but the background image stays fixed in place. So that's what fixed is, and sometimes that's the option that you want. Okay. And there are, if you go onto the web and you say how to use background images in CSS, there's a whole bunch of tutorials on how to do this. Okay, let's do something else fun. Oh, let's go to our canvas modules. I think we could let's do a text shadow. Oh, no, let's do a gradient first. So we're going to do a gradient. So there's a few gradient tools out there. They're a lot of fun. You can use these gradients in for the body background if you want to. You have to tweak them a little bit, but you can do it. So instead, what I'm going to do, because I want my image to be in the background, I'm going to put a gradient background behind CSS Zen Garden Simplified, so in the header. So when I get to CSS gradient, here it is. First of all, I can choose a gradient. So I can try to build my own, or I can kind of click here, see what they got, see if there's anything here I like or that I want to modify. Oh, that's pretty. Okay, so this is how it works. I'm going to modify maybe this one. So this one starts at pink and ends at blue. What are my colors? I think my colors are more like a light green, ending maybe at a, let me look at my Zen Garden for a minute. Oh, a pink, a hot pink. Let's do the hot pink. So we can change this to hot pink. All right. Oh, also this is notice how this is a radial. This is a radial. If we don't want radial, we can do linear. So it goes from one color to the other. But let's say we want to do something a little more dramatic. So I want to go from here to here, And from here to here, I can put in a third color just by clicking on this. I'm going to make a really hot, vibrant, you know, something representing that deep pink that I really like. There we go. That's good. Okay. And I can add additional colors if I really want to. So with this gradient, I'm going left to right. I'm going linear. And I'm going from green to pink to a deep pink. I can also change the direction of my gradient, this little thing here. But I do like the 90 degrees, so I'm going to put it back on that. That's kind of what I wanted. You're going to let me type? Oh no, I guess I have to. All right, 90, 85. Can we get to 90? There we go. That's what I want. Okay, 90. All right, so you may say, how do I put this in my header? Well, let's just scroll down. Oh, look, here's the CSS. There are two background properties and values. So I'm going to copy to clipboard. And with this in my paste buffer, I'm going to go to my CSS. I'm going to go to my header, and I'm just going to paste it right in there. Okay, now I want to make sure I paste these after this. So this set initially the background color to gray, but since these come afterwards, these wipe this one out. I could remove this, but I don't have to. Let's see what we got. Oh, look at that, so beautiful. Okay, that is CSS gradient, and you can play with it. All right, now since we have CSS gradient, oops, sorry, I'm going the wrong place. Let's also add the text shadow generator. So we'll put a little tiny text shadow on our header since we have that gradient on it. It will just help the text pop a little bit. So this is what we have. I'm just going to put a little bit of a text shadow behind these letters. Okay, so where are we? Here. So here's the text shadow generator. It's thinking. Okay. Okay, so this is the default, and this is kind of pretty much the way most text shadows work. But I mean, you can change it. You can change how far away the shadow is from the letters. You can change the blur factor. Let's kind of do that maybe. You can change the opacity. So you can make it semi-transparent. You can change the angle. Again, sort of by default, it's 45 degrees. Okay, that'll work. And you can change the color. So if you want to change the color of the blur yeah, you can do that. Okay, so let's just say that I want this. So again, here's the generated CSS. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to copy it. It's in my paste buffer. I'm going to go to the header and paste. All right, let's see what we have wrought. Oh, we have text shadow. Okay, pretty exciting. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this article, I'm going to put it into columns. So a lot of time you just want a single column, and especially if you're reading this on a phone, then you definitely just want a single column. But you know, if you're so this is the tube. We talked about this. This is the tube. So if you're on a phone, you definitely want the tube. But if you're not on the phone, if you're on a larger display, you may want columns. So I'm going to take this text and divide it into columns. So I'm going to go back to Canvas, go back to modules, go back to column generator. Okay, so this is how it works. This is our dummy text over here. We can change the column count. So there's 1 column, there's 10 columns, or 7 columns. We can increase the gap between the columns. We can have lines of different thicknesses between the columns. Okay, so I'm going to make 2 columns. I'm going to have a gap. I think the gap is in pixels, which I don't really like, but okay. We'll make it 5. And this is, oh yeah, this is the line if you want a line. Oh, look at that. So that line, okay, I'm going to say no line. Okay, I need a bigger gap apparently. There we go. Line. There we go. That's better. That's better. Okay. And you can change the color of the line. So this is the color. You could make it pink, for example. Okay. So all of that generated all this code. So I think if I copy this, oh no. All right, I'm just going to copy here. So we'll tell you later what this means. Don't worry about it. Actually, this is the CSS. You could probably copy it. I'm just going to copy here. And it's generated some extra stuff, and I'm going to tell you what that is in a minute. So I'm just going to copy all this, and I'll show you what we got. So I'm going to put this in the article, because it's the article that I want to divide into 2 columns with a line. So I'm going to go to article and the CSS, and I'm going to paste this mess. Okay, I'm going to tell you what we have. We actually have here 3 separate styles, even though we have 9 lines. First of all, let's see what happens when we preview this. Yes. Okay, excellent. We have 2 columns and we have a little pink divider. All right, that's what we wanted. But let me tell you what we've got here. So we have column count 2. That sets the number of columns. We have column gap 33 pixels. Now me, you know, let's make this 2%. Okay, I'm going to change these 2 in a minute. Meow. And then we have the column rule, 1 pixel, solid, RGBA. This is that dark pink. So I could make this 10 pixels, which would be a little crazy. All right, I don't really want to make it 10 pixels, but I could. I'm going to keep it at 1 pixel. Okay, but you'll notice for each one of these 3 styles, there's 2 other things. There's WebKit column count and Moz column count. And then there's WebKit column gap, which I'm going to change to 2%. And there's Moz column gap, same thing. All right, and there's WebKit column rule and Moz column rule. So what is this stuff? Why are there 3 column rules, 3 column gaps, and 3 column counts? So here's the reason. Earlier versions of some of the browsers do not fully support columns. So Moz is Mozilla. This is Firefox. So if Firefox, to increase the likelihood that Firefox will display this properly, you can say Moz column count. There's like a special thing out there. I believe that WebKit is Safari, and so if for some reason Safari does not just display column count, you can use WebKit column count. So mostly people put this in here just to be safe, because it's usually the older versions of the browsers. So if you have the latest version of Safari or Firefox, this is not really going to apply to you. But if you have an older version, then it might. Okay. All right, let's see if there's anything else we can do here. So we did Google Fonts, background images, columns, text shadow gradient. Okay. I'm going to show you one other thing. Actually, I'm going to show you 2 other things. The first thing I'm going to show you is just kind of for fun, because I think we're going to go over it in class. So let's say we wanted a little animation in here. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how HTML and CSS handles animation. But like all these fun little CSS generators, there's also a great animation generator called Animista. I believe I have it in here. It might be under the next one. It is. Okay, it's under long form multimedia resources, Animista. Okay, now we're going to go there. Okay. CSS animations on demand, try me. Okay, so let's try text. So tracking out, tracking in, focus in, blur out, flicker, shadow drop. Okay. All right, so if we wanted something, there's also basic, There's entrances, rotate in, swirl in, slide in, bounce in. Let's use text. We're going to just do a simple one. How about tracking in, focus in? We'll do focus in. Okay, focus in. So this is how you use it. So I'm going to just show you the basics. So let's say we want to apply this to the text in the header. So it's text, so we can apply it to the text. We're going to go over here. We're going to go to where this little icon here, it says generate code. Okay, there are two pieces of the code. We're going to ignore the first one and we're going to grab the second one. We're going to copy the keyframes. Okay, so all this stuff is copied into my paste buffer. Now I'm going to go to the CSS. I'm going to paste it at the bottom. Okay. So this is an animation in CSS, and we're going to go over it in class, but just so you kind of understand how it works. There are two parts to adding animation in CSS. The first part is to define the animation. You define the animation by defining the keyframes. So it's a keyframe based animation, just like Adobe Premiere or Adobe After Effects if you've used some of the animation tools in there. So we start at 0 and we go to 100%. And basically what happens at 0 is we're completely blurred, and at 100% we're not blurred at all. So this is a blur filter. So we're blurred 12 pixels, whatever that means. And then when we're done, we're blurred 0 pixels, which means we're not blurred. So that's the animation. And again, we have WebKit keyframes, we have regular keyframes. WebKit, this is for Safari. This thing at keyframes is for all the other browsers. Okay. All right, so that's the first part. We define the animation. Now, after we define the animation, we apply it to a style. So I'm going to select this. I'm not going to grab this. This is a class. We don't have that. We just need these two things. We need the animation. We need these two lines. So I want to apply this to the header. Poor header. I'm applying everything to it. Here it is. Okay. And again, same thing. We have the WebKit, which is for the Safaris, and then we have animation. This is the regular one. So what is this saying? This says, okay, we're applying an animation to the header. The first thing in here is the name of the animation. So if we go down to the bottom of our page where we pasted the animation, oh look, text focus in. That's the name of the animation. All right, so we're telling the header, hey header, you're going to do an animation. It's called text focus in. It's going to display for 1 second, and this is what it does. Okay, we have to worry about this, and don't worry about the rest of it. But the basic thing is the name of it and the duration. All right, let's see if that works. Drum roll, please. Oh, there. Oh, look at that. Now this had a little bit of unexpected. This was a little unexpected because I thought it would just apply to the text, but it has applied to the entire header. So it's both the text and the background. If I want it just to apply to the text, I'm probably going to have to put a P around CSS. Okay, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to keep it this way. We'll go over that later. Okay, so here's a whole bunch of stuff that I have done to junk up my Zen garden. There's one more thing that I'm going to do, because while this is lovely in many ways and hideous in many others, okay, it plays fine on a wide screen, but when it gets to the tube, it sort of loses its mind. Okay, so what I want to have happen is when it gets to a smaller screen, I want to get rid of the columns. That's the first thing, and that's very important. I want this image, instead of floating left and being 20% or whatever it's supposed to be, I want it to take up the entire width of the article. Same thing with the woo. All right, there might be a couple other things I want to do, but I definitely want to do those three things. I want to get rid of the columns, and I want the images to stop floating and to take up the entire width of the tube here. Okay, so this is how I'm going to do that. I'm going to use something called @media. We're going to talk about this in class next time. @media. And what this does, this allows you to set screen and max width, let's say 700 pixels. I think that's how we put it. What this says, okay, it says when you have a screen where the maximum width is 700 pixels, so it's 700 pixels wide or less, I want you to do the following. So this is the way it's set up. And we will go over this class. It starts with @media. Notice @media is kind of like @keyframes, kind of special versions, special elements within CSS. So @media means we're going to make a declaration for a specific kind of screen. Screen, and what are we going to do? We're looking for a screen where the max width is 700 pixels. Okay. And then we do the curly braces. So we're going to change styles that we set up above inside these curly braces. So what are we going to change? We're going to go to the article, and the first thing we're going to change is we're going to set the column count to 1. Oh, look at that. All right, it's already working. Okay, the next thing that we want to do, we have 2 images, and it's class float left and float right. That's the class for the images. We're going to set the float on those to none. Okay, and we're going to set the width to, let's set it to 90%. Let's try 100%. Let's see if it'll work. Okay. All right, so it's a little big. Maybe we'll set it to 90%. Okay, that's better. I might treat this a little bit differently, but I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, another thing I might want to do when the screen is this small, remember how main is like 80% of the browser window? That's fine on a larger screen, but on the phone, we probably want main to be wider. So I'm going to set the width here to, let's say, 96%. So we have a little bit of edge, but not a lot. Okay, there we go. So everything else is the same. All we did is we told it which styles to change when the screen gets below 700 pixels. And now if I open this up, notice once it hits 700 pixels, it goes back to 2 columns. And then when we go down, it goes back to, so 700 might be a bit, let's make it 600. My iPhone, I think, is 700. I think it is. I have the plus. Okay, so here we're greater than 600, greater than, then we're 600. Okay, so you can play around with that. Anyhow, that's how the media queries work. Okay, that's all I have in terms of fun things that you can do with your HTML and CSS. Most of this stuff is in Canvas, under modules, under resources. And if you want to use something, you can't figure out how to do it, just Google, how do I use Google Fonts? How do I use the gradient tool? And it should tell you. All right, have fun.